Hey there, Mark Orwoll is at it again, and today our journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step into the Chinese bureaucracy. Stick around.
Let the swing begin. Mark Orwoll is at it again, and that cat is swinging. Yeah, that cat is swinging.
How did you get two different passports? It's a question I get asked all the time, especially when I say, without any context, whatever, hey, did you know that I have two different passports? Honestly, if I just sit around and wait for the subject to come up in conversation on its own, I'll be twiddling my thumbs for a long time. Usually I have to goose the topic so that it rises to the surface as a point of discussion. My answer to their inevitable question, well, I really don't like to talk about it. The journey began. I think of this anecdote as a journey, which sounds so much more adventurous than process. Not long ago, when I received an unexpected invitation. Dear Mark, wrote a publicist that I'd never met before, we represent a Chinese hotel group that would like you to visit their authentic luxury properties in southwestern China and Tibet. All expenses paid. We think you'll get some great stories to publish. Care to join us? P.S. We also think you're just a wonderful, talented guy, beloved by all. You probably should have been a movie star instead of a travel writer. Just kidding. They didn't really use the word authentic, but everything else basically is true, in spirit, if not exact wording. I've traveled to nearly 100 countries over the years. I'd been to China many times, mostly to Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong, but I'd also wanted to visit Tibet, now considered, at least by the Chinese, if not the Tibetans themselves, an autonomous region within China. First things first, I headed over to the Chinese consulate in Manhattan. A consulate isn't the same as an embassy. Embassies are formal, beautifully designed, often in historic buildings with elaborate facades and carpeted corridors full of floral arrangements and elegant, important-looking visitors. Consulates are functional at best, with long lines of desperate travelers looking woeful. Embassies host state dinners at long banquet tables. Consulates stamp travel documents. Embassies have ambassadors. Consulates have apparatchiks. The Chinese consulate on West 42nd Street resembled an overly lighted, shabby DMV, but with longer lines and none of the charm. I'd carefully read the requirements for the visa I needed and had all the paperwork filled out and in hand. But when I was called to what looked like a ticket window at an out-of-the-way Greyhound bus station, the clerk took one look at my forms and shoved them back to me. You must have official stamp. The clerk looked to be all of 12 years old and nearly came up to my shoulders. I asked her what she meant. She said, every Chinese business has an official stamp. You need to have a stamp on the invitation. She spoke in exclamation points. She seemed quite animated and insistent, so I left the consulate to seek the counsel of the PR company that had invited me. That part of the journey necessitated a second invitation letter from China, complete with the rubber stamp, and a follow-up visit to the consulate. Every visit to the consulate required reservations at least a week in advance. When I arrived for my follow-up encounter, I lucked out and got a different bureaucrat. I turned on the charm, but for some reason she was immune. I handed over all my paperwork as well as my passport. This itinerary says you are going to Tibet. She too spoke in exclamation points. I must consult my superiors. 10 minutes later, I was face to face with an older man wearing a short-sleeved white shirt and a black tie. He didn't inspire confidence that the old Orwoll magnetism would work its usual magic. In rapid succession, the man fired question after question at me. Why do you go to Tibet? Tibet visas must come from China. Do you think we have them here? It says here you will be part of a small group. What is the size of the group, and what are the names of your friends in the group? Why are you being invited to travel with this hotel company? My answers? I'm going to Tibet as a tourist to see the beautiful country. By the way, never say you're traveling on business if you can avoid it. My hosts in China will arrange for the Tibet visa separately. I don't know the size of the group or the names of the other travelers. Not that I would have ratted out the other journalists anyway. I'm being invited because that is, think fast, Sparky. Come on, boy. You can do it. Before I further tied my tongue in knots, inspiration struck. Cultural Amity Program. I believe I actually used those words. I shouted my answer, and I recall my voice cracking over the word amity. Later, I would have to check a dictionary to make sure that I'd used amity correctly. The supervisor didn't look convinced, but said he would review the paperwork with his colleagues and email me when they were finished. The next stage of the journey was supposed to be a 4 or 5 day review, then a return of my passport, ideally stamped with the requested visa. I had another international trip coming up soon, so whether I got the Chinese visa or they denied me, I needed my passport and soon. After several useless phone calls to the consulate in the following week, then 2 weeks, not ready, visa not ready, I made one more in-person visit. When they called me to the window, I played it tough. I set my jaw, narrowed my eyes, and leaned in close. Please, 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 give me back my passport. I won't ever bother you again, I promise. Please, please, please. But I received the same answer as before. Is under review by our superiors, said the charmless young Mandarin behind the counter. We don't have. Visa is not ready. Later that day, I was drinking beers at Jimmy's Corner with a travel writer pal. I told him my sorrowful tale. Why don't you have 2 passports, he asked casually, in the same way someone might wonder why you're wearing only one shoe. You travel overseas all the time. You're a professional travel writer. While you're applying for a visa with 1 passport, you can use the second passport to travel. Don't worry, you'll qualify for sure. He recommended an expediter who calmed me down. The Chinese have stolen my passport, and I have another trip coming up, and I'm thinking of filing a crime report with the boys at the Midtown South Precinct, and he reassured me that they would take care of everything. And they did. 10 days later, not only did I have my original passport back from the consulate, I had a second passport. It had a different photograph, which I had posed for at the expediter's office, a different passport ID number, and 40 beautifully blank pages. So my journey of 1,000 miles was coming to a close. I never did get to Tibet, by the way. You probably figured that out. But first I had to pay the fees for getting my original passport back from the Chinese, an application fee, a federal processing fee, photography fee, and additional fee for faster service, $1,200 in all. But the journey won't be fully concluded until the first time I use my new secondary passport. Its cover unbent, its pages unblemished by entry stamps. And the passport control officer in Bulgaria or Bolivia looks at it and says, "First time on an international trip?" This has been Mark Orwoll is at it again. I hope you'll come back next week for some more frolic and fun. See ya.
Let the swing begin. Mark Orwoll is at it again, and that cat is swinging. Yeah, that cat is swinging. The party don't stop when Mark's in the spin.